The Zorith Empire, known across the galaxy as the most powerful and unyielding force, had long been in control, conquering planet after planet with ruthless efficiency. Their vast fleets and advanced technologies were unmatched, and the galaxy had learned to fear their might. But everything changed one fateful day when a mysterious warship appeared out of nowhere in a space sector that was thought to be completely empty. No one had expected it. The ship was enormous, far larger than anything the Zoriths had ever seen. It was sleek and dark, with sharp, angular lines that seemed to cut through the very fabric of space itself. Its surface seemed to shimmer with an eerie energy pulse that made the surrounding stars flicker and dim. As soon as the ship emerged, a strange ripple spread across the nearby space, scrambling communication systems and throwing the Empire's finest fleets into confusion. What was worse, the ship bore a chilling insignia, a human skull with wings, an emblem so foreign, yet strangely familiar. No one in the Zorith Empire could recognize it, but it carried a sense of dread that permeated their very core. The insignia wasn't just a symbol. It was a warning, a message they couldn't fully understand, yet felt compelled to fear. On Zarathus, the capital world of the Empire, the arrival of this warship sent waves of panic through the Imperial High Command. The Zorith leadership, accustomed to swift decisions and overwhelming power, found themselves stunned into silence. Their most senior fleet admirals and generals, usually filled with unshakable confidence, now hesitated. The cold, calculating minds that had crushed countless enemies across the galaxy now found themselves at a loss. They were not prepared for this. The strange warship didn't respond to any of their hails, nor did it retaliate when the Empire's fleets issued threats. It simply hovered there, silent and motionless. Its presence cast an oppressive shadow over the entire sector. Zorith's most advanced fleet, ready to launch at a moment's notice, now stood frozen. Tension built in the halls of Zorith Command as the situation became more bizarre by the moment. Messages flooded the command center, each one reporting failed communication with the fleets, scrambled systems, and growing uncertainty. The Empire's technologically superior sensors could not make sense of the ship. It did not register as a normal vessel. It was something different, something entirely unknown. Despite their military superiority, the Zorith High Command found themselves unable to act. Fleet admirals paced nervously, unable to formulate a coherent plan. The stalwart generals, who had led their armies to countless victories, were now paralyzed by an unseen force. They couldn't understand why, but the mere sight of the ship and its strange aura seemed to sap their confidence. In the chaos of this mental paralysis, rumors began to circulate. Whispers of humanity's long-forgotten existence spread like wildfire. Had the humans, thought to be extinct or insignificant for centuries, returned? Were they the ones behind this impossible ship? The Zorith Empire, which had dominated the galaxy for generations, suddenly found itself faced with a threat that was both unfamiliar and deeply unsettling. As the warship continued to hover ominously, the fear inside the Zorith Empire grew. Their once unchallenged supremacy was now questioned. Was this the beginning of the end for the Empire? Or was it simply a trick, a clever ploy designed to make them falter? The questions swirled in every corner of the galaxy, but the answer remained elusive. The Zorith Empire was a force to be reckoned with, yet they were now at the mercy of an unknown enemy that seemed to defy all logic and explanation. They were helpless. The human insignia, the strange ship, and the eerie silence were all part of a puzzle that no one in the Empire had the pieces to solve. As fear settled over the capital, one thing was certain. This was no ordinary enemy. The galaxy was about to witness a clash of powers, and the outcome would be determined by forces the Zorith Empire had never even considered. Inside the dark, imposing human warship, the Valiant, Captain Emma Reeves stood with a calm yet intense demeanor as she watched the Zorith Empire's chaos unfold on the bridge's main screen. The Empire's fleet was paralyzed, their communications scrambled, their commanders unsure of how to respond. From the depths of space, the ship had emerged like a shadow, and now it loomed in front of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, waiting for its next move. Despite the unsettling silence, Captain Reeves remained composed. The Valiant was humanity's newest creation, a warship built not only with the latest technology but with something far more potent, an unshakable will to fight for freedom. The ship's sleek, sharp silhouette could bend the very laws of physics, capable of traversing vast distances in the blink of an eye and engaging in combat with an unparalleled level of precision. Its power, however, was not solely derived from its weaponry. The true strength of the ship lay in its purpose, and that purpose had been set in motion long before the Valiant entered the Zorith Empire's space. Reeves was not alone in her mission. Her crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and brilliant young minds, stood ready to carry out what had long been planned, a strike against the oppressive empire that had ravaged countless worlds across the galaxy. Humanity, once thought to be insignificant, had been quietly watching, waiting for the right moment to show the galaxy its true potential. That moment had arrived. As the ship neared the heart of Zorith space, Captain Reeves issued the next set of orders, her voice steady and resolute. "Prepare for Phase 2. We've come too far to fail now." Her crew nodded, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and calm determination. They knew what was at stake, and they knew the cost of failure. This wasn't just about military victory. It was about sending a message to the entire galaxy that humanity, for all its flaws, was capable of greatness, of resilience, and of standing against tyranny. But Captain Reeves had a secret plan, one that she had kept hidden from even her closest officers. It wasn't just the overwhelming firepower of the Valiant that would secure humanity's place in the galaxy. It was the intelligence and resilience of its people that would leave an indelible mark on the Zorith Empire. Reeves knew that victory wasn't guaranteed by mere strength. It was the will to act when others would falter, the courage to take risks when the odds seemed insurmountable. As the Valiant cruised closer to the Empire's capital, Reeves activated the ship's communication systems, sending out a single, simple message. It echoed across the galaxy, cutting through the Empire's scrambled signals like a beacon. "We are humanity. We will no longer be silent." The words were brief, yet carried immense weight. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as weak, insignificant. Yet now, those same humans were at the doorstep of the galaxy's most powerful empire, daring it to challenge them. Reeves watched the immediate response from the Zorith command. No weapons fired. No fleets rushed to engage. There was only confusion, and worse, fear. The Empire's most advanced technology could not make sense of this challenge. It wasn't just a warship they were facing, but a people who had refused to be forgotten, who had fought and endured through countless hardships. The Valiant was a symbol, a message that humanity would not be silenced or intimidated. This was only the beginning, and as Reeves stood at the center of it all, she couldn't help but feel the weight of history upon her shoulders. The galaxy would never be the same again. The plan was in motion, but Reeves knew that the real test was yet to come. The Zorith Empire was not easily toppled. Its power had been built over centuries, and its leaders would not relinquish control without a fight. But what they didn't understand was that this fight would not be won by firepower alone. Humanity's true strength was in its resilience, its ability to adapt, and its refusal to give up. And in that moment, as the Valiant continued its quiet journey toward the heart of enemy territory, Captain Reeves could feel it. The beginning of a revolution, the dawn of humanity's rise to prominence in the galaxy. Back on the capital, world of Zorathis, chaos erupted within the heart of the Zorith Empire. The High Command, the very institution that had ruled over the galaxy for centuries, was paralyzed. The message sent by the Valiant had struck like a thunderbolt, and the response was not what anyone had anticipated. It was more than just a declaration of war. It was a direct challenge to the Empire's existence, a slap in the face of the very power the Zoriths had wielded without question for generations. The Empire's once unshakable grip on the galaxy now trembled. The commanding officers, the generals, the fleet admirals, those who had led millions of soldiers into battle, found themselves utterly stunned. Their faces, once confident and calculating, now wore expressions of confusion and disbelief. They stood, frozen in place, unable to process the significance of the human challenge that had come out of nowhere. The command center, normally abuzz with activity, fell eerily silent. The usual hum of communication stations, the endless streams of orders being issued and received, ceased. It was as though time itself had stopped. No one spoke. No one moved. The highest-ranking officers had been struck into a trance-like state, as if the very presence of the Valiant had overwhelmed their minds, locking them in a mental freeze. It was a strange, unsettling phenomenon, one that left the entire Empire's command structure hanging by a thread. For the first time in their history, the Zorith Empire found itself facing a threat it could neither comprehend nor counter. The Empire's entire communication grid, which was once the most advanced in the galaxy, began to malfunction. Screens flickered, signals scrambled, and systems that had operated flawlessly for centuries now sputtered and failed. The Zoriths had always prided themselves on their technological supremacy, but now, as if the galaxy itself had turned against them, their systems betrayed them. Panic began to creep through the ranks, but the High Command remained locked in its strange, paralyzed state. Outside, in the cold expanse of space, the human warship, the Valiant, remained eerily still. It made no moves, no threats. Its silence was a chilling reminder of how little the Zoriths understood this new enemy. The warship was waiting, watching, while the Empire fumbled in confusion. With no orders coming from the High Command, no leadership to guide them, the military forces stationed on Zarathus hesitated. The soldiers and officers, trained to be decisive and quick in the heat of battle, now stood uncertain. Should they advance? Should they retreat? The absence of clear direction left them disoriented and unsure. It was as if the very core of the Zorith military was beginning to unravel, piece by piece. The Empire, once a well-oiled machine, was now sputtering, unable to function. In the midst of this confusion, Commander Orcs Kalen found himself thrust into a role he was not prepared for. With the high-ranking officers incapacitated, it was up to him to rally the remaining forces of the Empire and formulate a plan. The weight of command fell squarely on his shoulders, but the task ahead was overwhelming. How could one officer, no matter how skilled, hope to command an entire Empire's military when the leaders above him could not even utter a single word? Kalen's mind raced as he scanned the chaotic reports pouring into the command center. The Empire's fleets were frozen in orbit, awaiting orders that would never come. The military forces were scattered, unable to make a move without leadership. The very structure of the Empire was in jeopardy, and Commander Kalen was left to pick up the pieces. He stood there for a moment, looking out over the vast expanse of Zarathus from the command center's window. The human ship, the Valiant, loomed in the distance, its dark silhouette casting an ominous shadow across the galaxy. Kalen's thoughts were clouded with uncertainty. Could the Zorith Empire truly be brought down by a single ship? A single message? He didn't know. But what he did know was that the longer they hesitated, the more likely it was that the Empire's grip on the galaxy would slip away. And the humans, it seemed, were ready to prove that they had no intention of being forgotten. Kalen clenched his fists, steeling himself for the impossible task ahead. He was alone, with no guidance, but he had no choice but to act. The fate of the Empire rested in his hands now. On the bridge of the Valiant, Captain Emma Reeves stood, motionless, her sharp eyes fixed on the fleet of the Zorith Empire as it hovered, confused and shaken. The human warship had already achieved one critical objective. It had thrown the entire Zorith command structure into chaos. But Reeves knew that this was only the beginning. They could not win this war through sheer force alone. The Zorith Empire was too vast, too powerful. Their fleets, though stunned, would eventually regroup, and the Valiant would not be able to stand against the full might of their armada forever. But Reeves wasn't thinking about weapons or firepower. She was thinking about something far more dangerous: psychology. The Zoriths had built their empire on fear and domination, and it was their greatest weakness. Reeves had studied them carefully, and she knew that the one thing they would never expect was for someone, anyone, to stand up to them, to face them head-on without fear. This was the strategy she had chosen: to rattle the Empire's leadership to its core, to disrupt their sense of invincibility, to make them question everything they thought they knew about power. Without hesitation, Reeves issued the order to begin broadcasting across every communication channel available. The Valiant's advanced systems reached out, tapping into every frequency, every network the Zoriths had relied on for their dominance. It was a bold move, one that could have dire consequences if it failed, but Reeves was resolute. The message would be simple, direct, and utterly unsettling. She knew that the Zoriths' arrogance was their greatest strength, and their greatest flaw. They believed no one could challenge them. They believed that their superiority was absolute, and Reeves was about to show them how wrong they were. The message, when it came, was stark and to the point. "We are the humans, and we're not afraid of you." The words were broadcast across the galaxy, piercing the silence like a thunderclap. It was not an elaborate declaration, nor an attempt to intimidate with grandiose speeches. It was a statement of defiance, a simple truth that sent shockwaves through the entire Zorith Empire. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as insignificant, weak and inconsequential. Now, that same humanity was speaking directly to the heart of the Empire, not with threats or demands, but with a bold refusal to be intimidated. The message hit like a punch to the gut of the Zorith leadership. The Empire's commanders and officers, still reeling from the mysterious warship's sudden arrival, found themselves in a state of mental deadlock. For all their training, for all their experience in warfare and politics, they could not process what was happening. The Valiant was not just a ship, it was a challenge, an affront to everything the Zoriths had ever known. And that message, so simple, yet so profound, had struck at the very heart of their arrogance. The high-ranking officials, once so decisive and confident in their ability to crush any foe, now stood frozen. They had always believed that their empire was unassailable, that no force in the galaxy could stand against them for long. But now, they were faced with something they had never anticipated. The humans, whom they had long dismissed, were standing up to them. And worse, they weren't backing down. The response from the Zorith leadership was one of confusion and uncertainty. The mental freeze that had gripped the high command deepened. These were not people who were used to failure, let alone the very concept of a species daring to defy them. And yet, the Valiant sat there, silent, in the cold of space, the very embodiment of humanity's refusal to bow down. The Zoriths had never fought an enemy like this. They had always faced enemies who fought for power, for territory, for dominance. But the humans, the very humans they had deemed insignificant, were fighting for something far more dangerous: their freedom, their dignity, and their right to exist without fear. This was the true strength of humanity. It was not in their weapons or their ships, but in their will to fight, to stand up when all seemed lost. As Reeves watched the response from the Zorith Empire unfold, she knew that she had taken a gamble that could either break them or break her, But she also knew that there was no turning back now. The message had been sent, and the Zoriths would never look at humanity the same way again. They had underestimated humans before. Now, they would face the consequences of that mistake. The Empire would have to confront a truth they had long ignored. Humanity was not just a footnote in their history. It was a force to be reckoned with. And this was only the beginning. As the Zorith Empire scrambled to recover from the shock of the human challenge, Commander Oris Kalen, now the de facto leader of the Empire's remaining military forces, knew he had to act quickly. With the high command paralyzed and no clear orders coming from the top, Kalen was forced to make his own decisions. His strategy was simple: destroy the human warship the Valiant before it could cause any more damage. He rallied what was left of the Empire's fleet, a group of ships now fraught with uncertainty but still capable of tremendous firepower. The fleet was ready for a counteroffensive, and Kalen was determined to show the galaxy that the Zorith Empire was far from defeated. He understood the gravity of the situation. The humans were challenging the Empire's supremacy, and it was vital to demonstrate that the Zoriths were still the dominant force in the galaxy. Kalen issued orders swiftly, his mind racing as his fleet moved into position. The plan was to outnumber the human ship, to surround it with overwhelming force and destroy it. He knew that the Valiant was powerful, but with the combined strength of his fleet, victory seemed certain. As the Empire's warships advanced through the stars, Kalen's confidence began to rise. He believed that this would be the final confrontation, that the mysterious human ship would be crushed under the weight of their numbers and firepower. But what Kalen hadn't accounted for was the true nature of humanity, their ability to think outside the box, to adapt, and to use ingenuity in ways that no one expected. The Zoriths had always relied on brute force and their advanced technology to secure victories. They had never faced an enemy like this before. As Kalen's fleet neared the Valiant, the first signs of trouble appeared. The human ship, though outnumbered, didn't retreat. It didn't even engage directly. Instead, it seemed to disappear into the darkness of space, its advanced technology rendering it nearly invisible to the Zorith fleet's sensors. Kalen's fleet sailed into what seemed like a trap. Without warning, enemy ships emerged from hidden positions, launching surprise attacks. Advanced holographic decoys and cleverly timed electromagnetic pulses disabled several of the Zorith vessels, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable. The humans had anticipated the Empire's moves and had set their own traps, using every advantage of technology and tactics to turn the tide of battle. The Zoriths, despite their superior numbers, were caught off guard at every turn. The battle quickly turned into a nightmare for the Zorith fleet. Ships that were once confident in their firepower now found themselves outmaneuvered at every step. The Valiant's crew, working in perfect unison, executed flawless ambushes, rendering the Empire's superior numbers meaningless. Each strike from the humans was calculated and precise, targeting weak points in the Zorith fleet that the Empire had not even considered. For the first time, Kalen realized that they were not facing an enemy who relied solely on strength. The humans fought with a cleverness and adaptability that the Zoriths could not match. As the hours passed, the Zorith fleet began to fall apart. Ships that had once been proud symbols of the Empire's might were now drifting wrecks in the void. The morale of Kalen's forces plummeted, and whispers began to spread throughout the fleet. How could this be happening? How could they, the mighty Zoriths, be losing to such an unexpected enemy? Kalen's confidence faltered as he watched the battle unfold. His commanders, once so sure of themselves, were now paralyzed by indecision. They couldn't adapt fast enough. Their tactics, honed over centuries of conquest, were useless against the humans' ingenuity. This wasn't a battle of numbers or firepower. The humans were showing the Zoriths something far more dangerous: the ability to fight with cunning, to turn every disadvantage into an opportunity. The battle was slipping out of Kalen's control, and as his fleet suffered more losses, he realized the full extent of what he was facing. The humans had something the Zoriths had never encountered before: resilience. A refusal to surrender, a determination to overcome any obstacle. It wasn't about the size of their ships or the power of their weapons. It was about something deeper, something that transcended firepower. And as the tide of battle shifted, irrevocably in favor of the humans, Kalen understood that the Zorith Empire was in grave danger. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for dominance, and the humans had just shown that they were capable of far more than anyone had ever imagined. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Valiant was not just a symbol of humanity's strength, but a weapon aimed at something far greater than the mere destruction of the Zorith fleet. Captain Emma Reeves knew that the tide of this conflict was shifting, but it wasn't just about winning a single battle. She had come with a deeper purpose, one that went beyond weapons and warfare. Her true mission was to dismantle the Zorith Empire itself, to expose its frailty, its corruption, and the very foundation on which its terrifying power was built. The Empire had long thrived on fear and oppression, controlling its vast territories through an iron grip, keeping its subjects in check with ruthless efficiency. But Reeves understood that the Empire's strength was a facade, a house of cards held together only by the fear of those who lived under its rule. And now, with the Empire's leadership paralyzed and its fleet in disarray, the moment to strike had arrived. The Zorith High Command, which had once been unshakable, was beginning to fracture. The inexplicable mental freeze that had gripped the Empire's leaders left them unable to issue commands or respond to the crisis in any meaningful way. Their once unassailable authority had been shattered, and Reeves, seeing this weakness, acted decisively. She wasn't merely fighting for victory on the battlefield. She was launching a psychological war, one that would spread throughout the entire empire. As her forces continued to press their advantage, Reeves made a bold move that would take the conflict to the heart of the Zorith Empire itself. She sent a covert team to infiltrate Zorithus, the capital world, to expose the corruption within the imperial government. The team, composed of the finest human operatives, moved silently and efficiently within the heart of the empire. They uncovered a shocking truth. The Zorith government, which had ruled with an iron fist, was built on a network of lies, deceit, and brutality. Reeves's operatives uncovered evidence of the Empire's exploitation of its own people, of the lavish lifestyles enjoyed by the ruling elite while their subjects suffered under the weight of tyranny. The people of the Empire, once loyal and obedient out of fear, were now seeing the true nature of their rulers. This was no longer just a battle for control of the galaxy. It was a struggle to expose the very soul of the Empire, a system built on oppression, corruption, and lies. With this knowledge, Reeves seized the opportunity to broadcast it to the galaxy. The Valiant, already a symbol of defiance, now became a beacon of truth. Humanity wasn't just fighting for power or resources. They were fighting for something far greater: justice, freedom, and the right to live without the shadow of oppression hanging over them. The Zorith Empire, once thought to be invincible, was revealed to be fragile, held together only by fear and deception. Reeves's message was simple but devastating. We fight not because we want power, but because we demand the right to live free of tyranny. As the truth spread across the galaxy, the Zorith leadership, once so confident in their ability to crush any resistance, found themselves in retreat. Their power base, once so firmly established, was crumbling. The people of the Empire, seeing their leader's true nature exposed, began to question their loyalty. The Zoriths, caught in a web of internal strife and external pressure, were beginning to unravel. It was clear that the Empire's once mighty foundation had been built on a shaky, corrupt structure, and now that structure was beginning to collapse. Cracks in the Empire's armor began to spread, and it wasn't just the Zoriths who noticed. Across the galaxy, systems and planets that had long been subjugated began to stir. Rumors of rebellion spread, whispers of a new movement, one that rejected the Empire's cruelty and embraced the ideals of freedom and justice. The seeds of revolution, once small and quiet, were now taking root. And at the center of this growing movement was humanity, not as an invader, but as a liberator, offering hope to those who had long been silenced. As Reeves looked out from the bridge of the Valiant, she knew the war was far from over. But for the first time, she could see the Empire's defeat on the horizon. The Zorith Empire, so certain of its invincibility, was now facing the consequences of its cruelty and arrogance. The battle for the galaxy had shifted from one of power to one of ideals, and humanity had become the champion of those ideals. The tide had turned, and the Empire's once unshakable confidence was now a distant memory. The revolution had begun. As the final confrontation unfolded, the once mighty Zorith Empire was a shadow of its former self. Its leadership, fractured and confused, could no longer hold the reins of power. The High Command, which had once commanded fear and respect, was now scattered and impotent. The Empire, built on fear and dominance, had finally reached its breaking point. For the first time in centuries, the Zoriths faced an enemy who didn't bend, didn't break, and wasn't willing to submit. Captain Emma Reeves stood at the helm of the Valiant, watching as the Empire's final defense crumbled before the unyielding spirit of humanity. The Zoriths had underestimated humanity's determination to rise above oppression, to fight not just with weapons, but with resolve and an unshakable belief in freedom. Though vastly outnumbered, humanity had proven that it could defeat an empire built on tyranny, not with superior technology, but with the will to stand against it. The remaining Zorith forces, desperate and outmatched, attempted a last-ditch effort to regroup and mount a defense. Their ships, however, were scattered, their leadership fractured, and their morale shattered. No longer was the Empire's firepower enough to deter the human forces. Reeves and her crew, having already outsmarted the Zoriths on countless occasions, now swept through the galaxy with relentless precision. The final battle wasn't just one of physical might. It was a battle for the soul of the galaxy. And humanity had come to show that no empire, no matter how powerful, could suppress the desire for freedom. The human forces, though fewer in number, fought with a strength that was beyond what mere weapons could measure. It was their courage, their unity, and their refusal to accept defeat that gave them the edge. The Zorith fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, was now in disarray. Their ships, once symbols of unstoppable power, were destroyed or fleeing in all directions. As the remnants of the Empire's military crumbled, Reeves knew the end was near. But this wasn't just the end of a war. It was the end of an era. The Zorith Empire's grip on the galaxy had been broken, and its power was now a thing of the past. The humans had not only defeated their enemy, they had exposed the Empire for what it truly was, a house of cards built on fear and lies. Hovering above the ruins of Zarathus, the once proud capital world of the Zoriths, the Valiant loomed as a symbol of humanity's triumph. The battle was over, but the message had only just begun to spread. Reeves knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. From the ashes of the Empire's fall, a new order was rising, one where humanity would take the lead. They weren't conquerors, they were liberators. They were not here to dominate, but to build a new future, one where the values of justice, freedom, and unity would guide the galaxy's future. Reeves, standing at the bridge of her ship, her eyes scanning the wreckage of the fallen empire, sent out one final broadcast to the galaxy. Her voice echoed through the stars, clear and unwavering. Humanity is not your enemy. We are your future, and we will not be silenced again. It was a statement of defiance, of hope, and of promise. The humans, who had once been underestimated, now stood as the torchbearers of a new era. The galaxy had been forever changed, not by brute force, but by the strength of the human spirit. As the Valiant hovered over the capital world of the fallen Zoriths, Reeves knew that this was just the beginning. The Empire had fallen, but the work to rebuild the galaxy had only just begun. The message was clear, and it would spread across the stars. Humanity had proven that they would never be silenced, never be cowed by oppression again. The future was now in their hands, and they would lead the galaxy into an era of justice and freedom. The Zorith Empire had fallen, and in its place, the hope of a new age had risen. The galaxy would never be the same,